Am I wrong for hiding my girlfriend's heels before going to my sister's wedding? To start off, I'm going to mention that I'm your typical 5'6" short guy. You can't say typical and then 5'6" in the same sentence. I hate myself. Oh my god, I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. I hate myself for it. I'm openly insecure about it and have exhausted all solutions to fix the issue. I met my girlfriend 6 months ago. She met my family and they all embraced her right away. My sister invited her to the wedding and mentioned including her in the wedding photos. I asked my girlfriend what shoes she was going to wear and she showed me a pair of high heels that would have basically made her look 2 times taller than me. I asked if she could consider wearing sandals instead since there was going to be photos and I didn't want to look like a gnome sitting next to her. She called me silly and brushed off my concerns, which was not appreciated. The day of the wedding, I hid her pair of heels. She has only one set in the apartment because she moved out all the old ones after I asked her to. She tried looking for them and really seemed to think something strange happened. I started telling her to hurry up so that we can go to the venue on time and she ended up wearing flats as a replacement. You're bad, man. Everything went well, and I gave her high heels back once we got home. She was shocked when she saw me holding them. I admitted hiding them for the reasons I stated above, and she got mad at me and said that I shouldn't have done that and forced her to wear sandals that completely didn't match with the dress. She kept saying I got what I wanted, but she will forever look awkward in these photos wearing those sandals. I do think she has every reason to be upset with me, but what was I supposed to do after I made my wishes clear and she brushed them off knowing full well how I felt about those high heels? So, am I the asshole? I really thought of it as a harmless move and I think she might have overreacted. Yo, dude, are you serious? Do you know how you sound right now? Am I the asshole for telling my wife the lock on my daughter's door does not get removed until my brother-in-law and his daughters are out of our house? My brother-in-law Sammy lost his home shortly after his divorce 10 months ago. He moved in with us and brought his twin daughters Olivia and Sloane 18 with him a couple of months ago. His sister, my wife, and I have one daughter, Zoe 16, and she and her cousins aren't close but get along fine. Olivia and Sloane have no respect for Zoe's privacy, none. They used to walk into her room and take everything they get their hands on. Makeup, phone, accessories, clothes, school laptop, etc. Zoe complained a lot and I've already asked the girls to respect Zoe's privacy and stop taking things. My wife and Sammy saw no issue with this. After all, they're girls and this is typical teenager girl behavior. I completely disagree. The last straw was when Zoe bought a $60 MAC makeup kit that looks like a paint set that she saved up for over a month and one of the girls, Sloane, took it without permission and ruined it by mixing shades together while using it. Don't know much about makeup, but that's what Zoe said when she found the kit on her bed and was crying. I told my wife and she said she asked Sloane to apologize, but I got Zoe a lock after I found out she was moving valuable belongings out of the house because of this incident. The girls were extremely upset. Sammy asked about it and I straight up told him. He said, my girls aren't thieves. It's normal that girls of the same age borrow each other's stuff. He said that Zoe could easily get another makeup kit for $15 from Walmart and shouldn't even be buying expensive adult makeup in the first place, and suggested my wife take care of this defect in Zoe's personality trying to appear older than she is. Oh, this is where the claws come out. He accused me of being overprotective and babying Zoe with this level of enablement. I told him that this is between me and my wife, but she shamed me for putting a lock on Zoe's door for her cousins to see and preventing them from spending time with her, saying I was supposed to treat them like daughters, then demanded I remove it. But I said this lock does not get removed until her brother and his daughter provided for him financially. But he claimed that it's only because the law made me, which isn't true at all, and I strongly believe his stepdad was feeding lies into him. In the past 3 years, Justin started coming around and I met his then girlfriend, now wife. When I heard that they were getting married, I decided to offer paying for the venue and Justin argued he wasn't going to lie to make me happy. I asked what he meant because as far as I know, part of his wedding was paid for by me. He said I was unbelievable, then hung up. I called again and we fought on the phone, after which I told him that I felt unappreciated and disrespected. He said he owed me exactly nothing and then hung up. We haven't talked ever since and my wife says I went too harsh on Justin and should apologize for disrespecting his wedding and not showing support by leaving like that.
Storytime about how I married my blind date after knowing each other for 2 weeks. After I broke up with my ex who cheated on me 4 times, I swore off men. But my friends and family were constantly telling me that I should at least try dating other people. I went 2 full years without dating anyone, and it was the best decision I ever made. Instead of going out on dates, I decided to take that time to work on myself. I prioritized myself and started doing the things that I've always wanted to do. For example, I always wanted to learn how to play the piano, so I put myself into piano classes. I also started taking belly dancing classes, and I signed up to Pilates. I also decided to focus on my mental health because I realized that I always depended on validation from men. It was the happiest I'd ever been. My family even saw the changes in me, and my mom told me that maybe it was time for me to start dating. Last year, my sister signed up to a bunch of dating apps, and she actually met some really good men. I really thought about it long and hard, and I decided to sign up for one too. And I told myself that I would take it slow and easy. Finally, I went on my first date. It didn't go very well because my date only talked about himself and didn't ask me any questions. But then my second date was this amazing guy. And I kid you not, it was love at first sight. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how I married my blind date after knowing each other for only 2 weeks. So I walk into the restaurant and I know what he looks like. He was already sitting at the table, but as soon as we locked eyes, it was instant attraction. But not just attraction, it was love. I honestly don't know how to describe it. It was this feeling I'd never felt before. When I sat down at the table, we instantly connected. We talked about everything, from our childhoods up until that point. We talked about school, friends, even our favorite foods, favorite colors, places we wanted to visit. I'm talking about everything. We even talked about our family problems, which I had never done that with anyone else. We basically ordered the entire menu. And over the next 5 hours, we talked and ate and laughed. You know when there's moments of silence in a conversation, and sometimes it's awkward? There was none of that. We were constantly talking and asking each other questions. The restaurant actually had to tell us to go home. When we said goodbye, he asked me if he could take me to breakfast the next day. And of course, I said yes. As I was driving home, I knew that this was the guy I wanted to marry. For the next week, we hung out almost every single day when we weren't working, and we texted each other day and night. He would send me paragraphs. By the end of the week, he asked me if he could meet my parents. We had a wonderful dinner and my parents loved him. He put so much effort into talking to them and even brought them gifts. The following day, I met his family, and they loved me too. The following Monday, he asked me to move in with him, and I said yes. Part 3 is part 3 of how I married my blind date after only knowing each other for 2 weeks. After 1 week of knowing each other, he asked me to move in. Like I said, my parents loved him, but when I told him that we were going to move in together after knowing each other for 1 week, they thought it was a terrible idea. But there was no way I was backing out on moving in with him. I told him that this was a risk I was willing to take. I was a grown adult, so I had the final word. That very same week, I started moving all my stuff in. After living together for 3 days, we were having so much fun. I was living with my best friend. We would tell each other everything. We decided to host a dinner for our family and friends. His family got along really well with my family, and his friends ended up loving me. By the end of that second week, my boyfriend was talking about getting married, and I said it would be a dream to marry him. And guess what? The next day, he takes me out for an early breakfast. While we're sitting at the restaurant, the server brings over a box, and he tells me to open it. And inside was a beautiful emerald ring. I had told him on our first date that emeralds were my favorite stones. He got down on one knee and asked me to marry him. And I said yes. In order to avoid having to convince our families, we went straight to the court and got married the following day. Yes, I know it's totally crazy, but I am so happy. We've been married now for 3 years. We've traveled to 8 different countries, and we also decided to have children. I never thought I would marry the man of my dreams after 2 weeks of knowing him, but my risk paid off. What should we name our first baby?
I got her pregnant because she cheated on me. Hi, my name is Elias, and I'm currently 28 years old. I just graduated from college with a JD degree. So therefore, I'm trying to be a lawyer. So I met this girl, Sarah, off of Tinder. Sarah was one of the most beautiful girls I'd ever met. And honestly, I was kind of hesitant to date her for this very reason, because most pretty girls tend to be cheaters. But I decided to go for it anyways. I took that risk. She was one of the most sweetest and loyal girls ever, or so I thought she was. But after 7 months of dating, I went over to her place to surprise her, and I literally saw her making out with another guy in front of her place. And I wanted to get revenge. I wanted to officially make her mine, attached to me for life. So obviously the only solution was to get her pregnant. So I surprised her with this really fancy date and bought a really fancy hotel in New York City. And then I decided to, do it with her. But she wanted to use a condom since she wasn't on birth control. But I simply poked holes in every single condom. And then I waited. About a month later, I got a text that she was pregnant.
I got her pregnant because she cheated on me, part 2. So after that, she had texted me that she was pregnant and she was freaking out. She said, "What had happened when we used condoms? I don't understand." I just told her I don't know. I asked her if she was deciding to keep the baby, and she said no. So I ended up gaslighting her into keeping the baby. And she actually ended up keeping the baby. But we aren't together anymore, but I still have contact with her, which is all that matters. 2 years later, we have a beautiful baby girl. We co-parent in a healthy way, and I'm not gonna lie, we do get together sometimes, if you know what I mean. Even though she has a boyfriend, but it doesn't really matter to me. As long as she's in my life, I have no issue with it. Sometimes our 2-year-old even begs us to stay together sometimes, because she wants mommy and daddy to be together. Do you think the girl made the right decision by keeping the baby? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoy crazy story times like this, make sure to follow for more. If you want uncensored, more crazy story times, make sure to check out my YouTube channel.
Storytime about when I woke up to a hooded figure standing over me. Due to a multitude of factors, including a recent death of a close friend, I was unbearably depressed at this time in my life. For that reason, my family flew across the country to visit me in LA, where I live. We thought it would be nice to visit Catalina Island. When we arrived, it became apparent to us that it was off-season. It was late November, the weather was cold, and as a result, the island was nearly empty besides locals and a few straggling tourists such as ourselves. Our first priority was to ditch our luggage so we could explore the island, so we immediately checked into our motel, though that word hardly does this place justice. I call it a motel because all the doors to the rooms exited to the outside, but in actuality, our room was one one of 20 to 30 quaint guest house looking buildings arranged in a sort of horseshoe shape around a walkway with rooms on either side of the path. The entrance to the motel was essentially one of the points of the horseshoe, and if you walked dead straight, you'd reach the room that we were given, essentially on the corner before you have to go right to go further into the horseshoe. So from our room, one path led back to the street, the other further into the secluded maze of rooms. After a day of exploring and having just finished dinner, it was time for a cold, dark walk back to the room. Catalina Island is a decent distance from the mainland, and let me just say, it gets dark. Similarly dark was my headspace after the dinner conversation took a left turn and my overwhelming depression got the best of me. I pulled my black hoodie tighter over my freezing ears and walked ahead of my parents to the hotel room, telling them I just needed to go to sleep. And I did immediately. Depression sometimes makes that easy. I was already losing consciousness as they entered after me, drifting off without so much as a good night. I then woke up to my mom saying my name, a harsh whisper. The room had 2 beds, my parents' bed closer to the door and mine further in the room. My mom's voice cut through the silence again. She sounded concerned for me. I didn't blame her, considering my mental state at the time. Groggy, I rolled over. "What?" I asked. As my eyes adjusted to the dim moonlight coming in through the curtains, I saw her turn to face me. She was surprised to see me in my bed. Her eyes got wide. If I'm in my bed, who was she talking to? We both looked back to where she was previously looking and see a hooded figure in all black standing over their bed. In that moment, we were both frozen with fear. Part 2, when I woke up to a hooded figure standing over me. We were on an island in the middle of the ocean and woke up to see a hooded stranger looming over us. This moment seemed to last forever. Life isn't like the movies, where the characters unleash a blood-curdling scream. Sometimes the only thing that comes out is panicked and guttural. My mom's words became low and severe as she said my dad's name in a dire voice I've never heard her use before. Then the hooded figure did something so bizarre and unsettling. It didn't advance towards us, but instead crouched in the corner near where it stood. The way it crouched was so absolutely unexpected, even in regards to this already unexpected situation, that it terrified me. It seemed animalistic. I knew 2 things. The hooded figure had been standing over us sleeping, and it's not acting in any sort of way that I can understand. As opposed to the infinite moment of this figure standing over us mere seconds ago, the series of events that unfolded when my hulking ex-military dad woke up happened in an instant. Suddenly, we were at the door, not knowing which way the intruder went. My mom was screaming, "Get him! Get him!" My dad was running down one path of the horseshoe, further into the hotel, shouting through sheer adrenaline, "I'm going to fucking kill you!" I ran down the other path towards the street. When I got there, not a sign of the intruder, but it became suspiciously quiet behind me. I ran back to the room to find my dad quietly walking back, his head low. He gets really close to me and I hear him say, "It's a fucking kid." So basically, some young teen, tall and lanky as I am in my 20s, wearing all black including a black hoodie, went into the wrong room. Our room. The one time my parents just so happened to forget to lock the door. My mom woke up when he entered and seeing a tall person in a black hoodie thought it was me, assumedly leaving the room in a depressive episode. And when the hooded figure crouched, that was him realizing his mistake and panicking. He was scared of us. As I got back to the room, my mom walked out and hugs the kid, who was now crying his eyes out. I would be too if a massive ex-soldier was sprinting after me with murder in his eyes.
Hi, my name is Ada, and I'm from New York. Me and my twin sister Gia were born to 2 very chaotic parents who fought like Tom and Jerry all the time. And on the very day we were born, they picked up a twin each and decided to make us the best version of themselves. Ada is hungry. She needs milk. Oh, since you chose her, why don't you feed her from your nipples? Yep, Dad picked me, and growing up, he taught me the Turkish language because he was from Turkey. And Gia was Mom's favorite, so Mom taught her Italian because she was from Italy. Although we spoke English at home, that whole language thing kinda became the reason for all the chaos and misunderstandings in the family. Because of Mom and Dad's fights, I could never get close to Mom, and I hated that. So once, when I was 8, I decided to make a card for Mom for the new year and asked Gia for help. When Mom saw it, she went ballistic. Sei una vaca grassa, which meant, "You're a fat cow." God, you're so rude, Ada. Just like your jerk dad. I always knew I made the right choice by picking Gia. I was furious. That witch made me do this. I ran to Gia and pulled her by her hair. Why did you do that to me? 'Cause Dad loves you more than me, and I hate it. So what? Mom loves you more than me. Just then, Mom came and separated us and said something to Gia in Italian. What did you say? Not your freaking business. Go to your daddy and hug him. But Gia glared at me and spit at my face, and another fight broke out. She beat me to it, and I got a black eye, but I was so gonna get back at her. The funny thing was about us, Gia and I were identical twins. We both looked so much alike that even our parents couldn't tell us apart. And I was gonna use that against her. The next day, I went to school and punched a kid straight in the face. I rule the school. No one dares mess with me. Remember my name. It's Gia. That would land Gia in detention for sure. But my plan kinda backfired when both Mom and Dad were called to the principal's office. And when they couldn't figure out who it was between us, they started blaming each other for it in front of the principal. Sei stupido. Yeah, whatever. Same to you. Back at you. Così stupido tu animale. The principal let us off without any punishment because she just wanted to get my parents out of her office. But it's not like they ever stopped. On Thanksgiving dinner, Mom served pizza and Dad went ballistic. Where's the freaking turkey? Who even makes pizza on Thanksgiving? You stupid woman. Turkey, turkey. Go ask your mother to make you a turkey. And saying that, Mom threw a plate at Dad, which he avoided, but then Dad grabbed the ketchup bottle and pointed it at Mom. Don't you dare. This is a designer top. Watch me. And he squeezed out all of the ketchup onto Mom's top. Mom shrieked, and soon our dinner table turned into a war zone. Gia and I felt terrible. Mom and Dad didn't even care about any happy occasion or us anymore. They just fought all the time. Then one day in the 7th grade, when Gia and I got back home after school, Mom and Dad finally dropped the bomb on us. We are getting a divorce. Ada is going to live with her dad in Turkey, and Gia is going to live with me in Italy. What? No way. You can't do that. No, Mom. No, Dad. I can't live without you guys. I want all of us together. Please, don't do this. But they didn't listen to us and said it was final. Later that night, I went to talk to Gia in her room. I thought she might not listen to me, but she hugged me as soon as she saw me. Oh, Ada, I'm so glad you're here. Even though we fight all the time, I can't live without you and Dad, sis. We have to do something. What can we do? Our parents just hate us. They're selfish and only think about themselves. Then let's just run away. They'll get busy looking for us, and then they'll forget all about this stupid divorce thing. They'll understand how much we need them. I won't let this happen. I won't let them ruin our lives. We have to stay together no matter what. But Mom and Dad had already filed for the divorce, and within a week, they even signed the final papers. But then I had a brilliant idea. I could switch places with Gia and go with Mom to Italy. We would tell them about the swap after 6 months. And when they'd meet again to exchange us, maybe they'd be less angry and realize that they still loved each other. Yes, this was perfect. I immediately told Gia about it, and she happily agreed. Soon after, Mom and I flew off to Italy, and there, Mom had a huge place of her own. As soon as we got there, a maid came running and grabbed all our luggage. Benvenuta, signorina. And that's when it hit me. I could not understand a word of Italian. And this reminded me of Gia. She was also stuck in Turkey and didn't know a word of Turkish. God knows what kind of trouble she was going through. Marhaba birkaç erkek alabilir miyim? What are you saying, kid? Are you out of your mind? Soon after, Mom enrolled me in school, and my first day was a complete mess. The teacher asked me to introduce myself, and I said, Ciao, mi chiamo Gia, siete tutti brutti. Everyone gasped and looked at me like I'd cursed them. All I said was they were nice, but for some reason, none of them would talk to me now. The next day during lunchtime, pizza was being served in the cafeteria, but I noticed there wasn't enough cheese on top. Can I get more cheese on this? The server stared at me like I had asked for her kidney. And dude, this was a clear mistake. Asking for more cheese in Italy is considered super rude, but I didn't know that. Cheese? Vacca grassa? The lady glared at me and jumped over the food counter to attack me. She chased me for a mile around the school until the principal caught us both. She sternly told me off for being rude and said she was going to call my mom later. And I felt like a terrible kid. Mom was already dealing with the divorce, and now I was adding more to her troubles. I thought I'd apologize to her as soon as I got home, but what I saw next shocked me. Mom was having a pool party with her friends, and they were all having the time of their lives. What the crap? Mom, what's going on here? Oh, honey, I'm having so much fun. You should join us. If I knew life without your father would be so amazing, I'd have divorced him before the wedding. I feel like I'm 20 again. Woohoo! What? I thought she'd be missing Dad and me, but she was having a blast. This was so weird and not what I expected. I quickly went to my room and called Gia to tell her how Mom was going completely crazy. But what she told me shocked me even more. Dad was gonna get engaged within a week. This was insane. We had to get Mom and Dad back together soon, by any means possible. The next day, I was all set to break the news to Mom, But what I saw almost gave me a heart attack. She introduced me to a not-so-handsome man as her boyfriend. Ciao, sono Roberto, signorina. And before I could even say anything, they put me in a car and took me shopping with them. But I had to do something to get rid of all this Italian pasta sauce at all costs. When Mom went inside the changing room, I told him to leave her alone. Voglio che tu ami mia madre. Suddenly, he had tears in his eyes, and he hugged me. What was wrong? Then he took a rose from his pocket and proposed to my mom in the most romantic way possible. Sarai mia, signorina. Mom looked awestruck, and then she said the words that I dreaded the most. Si, lo farò. OMG, what the heck was happening? Our plan was literally falling apart. The next day, I stormed off to school in anger. But in the school corridor, a guy pulled my hand and started flirting with me. Hi, beautiful. Want to go and get some cheese with me? I'll open factories for you. Ew, he was so gross. And I was so done with kids making fun of me for not knowing the language. I knew a little Italian by now, so I told him to leave me alone. But he didn't, so I slapped him hard. He left and he went to tell the principal some lies that I forced him to kiss me. An hour later, Mom barged into the principal's office and she looked raging mad. Your kid has been misbehaving with our staff and been doing inappropriate things to boys. Mom, I didn't. Oh, I know my daughter very well. It's the school that's stupid, and I'm putting her into a better one. We are done here. Oh my God, she was so unpredictable. While driving me back home, I thought Mom would scold me, but instead, she said something that completely shocked me. It's okay, honey. If you're ever in a place where you're unhappy, then you can always move away. Just like I did, Ada. What? Did she just call me by my real name? Mom, you know? Of course I know. You're my child. Really? Well, no. This morning after you left for school, I went to your room and I saw your pink-colored undies, which Gia hates. But why did you do this, honey? Imagine everything Gia has been going through there. She doesn't even know the language. We want you guys to get back together. But Mom didn't say a word to that. And as soon as we reached home, she called Dad and told him everything. But Dad, like always, wouldn't believe her. I'm not going to fall for your pranks, woman. Do you think I'm a fool? Of course I know it's my daughter. It's Ada. But minutes later, he called her back saying he knew from the beginning it wasn't me. Mom immediately got on a plane with me. When we landed at the airport, I saw Gia and Dad waiting for us outside. I ran towards her and she hugged me as soon as she saw me. I missed you so much, sister. Minutes later, Mom asked Gia to follow her and Dad asked me to come with him, but I had to try one last time. Enough, you guys. We are not going anywhere. We want to live together like a family. Please, can't you do this for us? Yes, I want to live with Ada and Mom. Not like this, where I feel so empty and alone and unloved. I want to be happy. Mom and Dad looked at us in complete surprise. Oh, honey, why would you ever think you're alone? No matter what happens between me and Mom, nothing could ever change the fact that we're your parents, and we love you so much. You'll always have both of us. Then why can't we all live together? Because that won't make any of us happy. We wanted to raise you in a happy home with great memories, but living together, we could never give you any of that. And now look at us. We are happy, and we can give you the best of the world, only if you choose to accept it. Suddenly, I had tears in my eyes. Maybe Mom was right. She looked a lot happier and healthier than she ever used to be with Dad. And Dad, he looked like he was going to explode with joy. And now, the only people fighting against this happiness was me and Gia. This had to stop. I looked at her, and she looked at me, and we knew what the right thing to do was. We agreed to Mom and Dad's plan, but we decided we weren't going to sacrifice our happiness either. So Gia and I decided to live with Mom, and both of us moved back to Italy with her. But we often visited Dad and his new family, and we were the happiest.
about how I got caught sneaking out of my house. So a little background information, I was 15 years old and a freshman in high school, and this happened about a month or so before school ended. I honestly had a pretty normal life before this happened. There was nothing exciting or crazy going on, no drama or anything like that, except there was this one junior that I had a huge crush on, and we are going to call him Kevin. Kevin was known for going after freshmen. I mean, we all know that one guy, but I thought he was really interested in me. Why? Because I was stupid. Yeah. Well, with that being said, I was never really allowed to see Kevin because my mom was extremely strict since she had my sister whenever she was 17. I was never really allowed to see him outside of school unless like we were in a big group of people or my mom just didn't know that he was going to be there, or any guy for that matter. So like I said, she had my sister whenever she was 17, so she would never let us go out with boys, be out after dark. She was just super protective. Like, we weren't even allowed to sleep over at our friends for a whole weekend. We were only allowed to sleep over one day out of the week at a friend's house. I felt like I was living in a prison, which I pretty much was, but you know. On the other hand, my dad didn't really care what my sister and I did as long as we weren't like, you know, doing meth on the curb. He didn't care, but he would always agree with my mom because, as he always says, happy wife, happy life. So whatever my mom said kind of, you know, was the overall decision. The worst part was I wasn't even the one that my mom needed to be worried about. My older sister was way worse than I was. And she didn't even care whenever she would get in trouble. So it was like, I don't know, maybe they just didn't want me to be like her. Well, with that being said, Kevin invited me to a party that he was throwing. And of course I knew that I could not tell my mom, or else I would probably be grounded for even asking her if I could go to a freaking party. So what did I decide to do? I decided that for the first time in my pubescent life, I would be a little bit rebellious and sneak out to go to this party. So I invite my friend Anna over and I tell her about the whole plan. And the plan was I was going to sneak out of my house whenever my parents were asleep. That's kind of like the most classic thing you could do when you're sneaking out. I may or may not have looked up a few YouTube videos on how to sneak out, but you know. Anyway, so my bedroom was right above the garage roof, so I decided that I would climb out my window, jump onto the roof, and then jump down, and we would run over to an Uber that was parked at my neighbor's house, because sadly I could not drive. The plan was honestly just like perfect. So Wednesday, I decide that I need to find something to wear because the party was on Friday. I really never been to a high school party before, but I also wanted to make sure that this outfit would be hot enough to get the attention of Kevin. Well, eventually I find something that I think will work, but of course, as I am trying it on, who barges in my room without knocking? My mother. I literally had no privacy in that house and it was ridiculous. And I literally don't have a top on, no bra or anything. I'm trying on this mini skirt. Anyway, so she comes in my room and she gives me this like stank look. And she was like, where do you think you're going in that skirt? And then she says, better yet, who are you trying to let in that skirt? And I was like, what the fuck? First of all, yeah, that's how my mom was. She always thought that my sisters and I were doing something, having sex, doing drugs. She always thought the worst of us. Love that. Again with the snoring, my dog literally does not stop snoring. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Anyway, so my response was I was trying it on because Anna said that if I grew out of it, she might want it. So then she rolls her eyes and she's like, well, it doesn't fit, so I think you can give it to Anna. Like, girl, shut up. Nobody asked your opinion in the first place. Go do my laundry or something, period. That sounded a little fucked up, but still. start second guessing my whole entire plan. Like one time my older sister got caught smoking pot and my mom put her in some weird summer camp for kids with behavioral issues. Like what the fuck? She also sold my sister's car and got her a bus pass. So I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely nervous. I had to do my eyeliner off camera because I knew it was gonna be a fail if I did it on camera. So anyways, back to the story. So Friday night comes around. I'm super excited, texting Kevin. He's texting me about how excited he is. Anna got a ride to my house after school, and we spent most of the day doing random shit. Like we went swimming for a little bit, we watched a few movies, and Anna had went to a few parties before this, but her parents were kind of strict like mine. She just had the balls to sneak out 24/7 and everything like that. So yeah. Then at 10:30 we decided to finally get ready for this party. We did our makeup, got dressed, but we had pajamas on. So she looks at me and she's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then I look at her like, what the fuck are you doing? Because neither of us were supposed to be sneaking out. So don't ask me what I'm doing so you can go and rat to our mom about this. So it turns out that her and I were going to the same party and they were sneaking out at the same time because they saw mine and Anna's Uber pull up at our neighbor's and they thought that it was theirs. So they ended up just canceling their Uber and riding with us. Because if she would have even tried to sneak back into the house, like if she would have made a creak, my mom would have heard it and it wouldn't have been pretty. She probably would have went back to behavioral kids camp. So we all get into Anna's Uber and head to the party. And I'm not gonna lie, this was the first time that my sister and I had actually like hung out. My mom wouldn't really let me hang out with her anyways because she would have always considered the bad kid and I was always considered the goody two-shoes. Well, once we got to the party, I found Kevin. He got me a drink, we started talking. And then he said he wanted us to have some alone time. So what did we do? We went out on the balcony. I thought this kid was going to try and make a move on me, but he didn't. He was literally like a little puss. So I decided that I was going to be the first one to make the move. So as soon as I'm about to kiss him, I hear somebody yell, "Cops are here!" Girl, the one night I decided to sneak out. The one night. This was not in any of the YouTube videos I watched on how to sneak out. So at this point, I am in a full panic mode. All I see is Anna and a bunch of other kids running. So I decide to jump off of a 10-foot, maybe 12-foot up balcony. As we're running through the woods, I see lights flashing behind us, and I hear kids getting grabbed by cops, and more sirens. It was just a shit show. And all I can think about is the fact that my mom is going to murder me if I get caught. So I decide to text my sister and ask where the hell she is, because she was hooking up with some guy who parents own the house that the party was at. And she goes, "I'm hiding in the attic. Where are you?" Now, as soon as I was about to answer that text, I definitely shouldn't have been texting and running while the cops were running after us, because eventually I slipped and fell into this little creek and I cut my hand really bad on a rock. love that for me. So while I'm like pretty much bleeding out, I'm also trying to calm Anna down because Anna cannot handle blood. So she's like about to pass out, you know. Well, once we got to the road, I realized I was covered in fucking blood all over me, all over my face. So we decided to call an ambulance, and we thought that, you know, oh, it's okay if we call an ambulance, we can just give them fake names. That's not what happened. You can't just give an ambulance a fake name, I found out, and you can't just give, like, you know, the doctors a fake name. So once the ambulance showed up, I went into shock from how much blood I was losing, and probably because I was also watching all the blood come out. And then I woke up in the hospital a little bit later. Anna was not there, but my angry ass mother was sitting in the chair next to me, and my sister was staring at me smiling because she didn't get caught. She happened to make it home in time, which I don't even know how. I really don't know how, because I could have swore that it only took us like 20 minutes to run to the street and then get to the hospital. I don't know. My mom never found out about my sister, but I was grounded for 2 months and had to wait to drive till I was 17.
Story time about how I caught my baby daddy with my best friend in my own bed. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it's sending me on Instagram. My baby and daddy and I are engaged to be married. Our baby is almost 1 year old and we've been happy up until now. The bad thing is that we rushed into our relationship. We never really took the time to really get to know each other. I don't know a lot about his childhood and I don't tell him about mine because he doesn't ask. We don't really know what each other's favorite colors are, you know, stuff like that. Then I got pregnant and everything changed. He asked me to marry him and I told him that we needed to be engaged for a while so that we could really get to know each other. At first he agreed, but then he started getting annoyed. He wanted to go out with his friends and be free, but we had a baby. This is where my best friend comes in. I'm a nurse and one of the things that I told my fiance was that I wanted to keep my job even after I had the baby. So my best friend started coming over to our place to take care of the baby. My fiance owns his own business so he doesn't have to be there all the time. So he was basically home all the time with my best friend. And no, it never crossed my mind that they would ever do anything behind my back. 3 weeks ago, I started noticing some really weird behavior between them. My best friend had a hickey on her neck and I started asking her who it was from. I just was curious, but my fiance yelled at me and told me to stop asking. Part 2 is up. Story time about how I caught my baby daddy with my best friend in my own bed. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it's sending me on Instagram. My baby and daddy and I are engaged to be married. Our baby is almost 1 year old and we've been happy up until now. The bad thing is that we rushed into our relationship. We never really took the time to really get to know each other. I don't know a lot about his childhood and I don't tell him about mine because he doesn't ask. We don't really know what each other's favorite colors are, you know, stuff like that. Then I got pregnant and everything changed. He asked me to marry him and I told him that we needed to be engaged for a while so that we could really get to know each other. At first he agreed, but then he started getting annoyed. He wanted to go out with his friends and be free, but we had a baby. This is where my best friend comes in. I'm a nurse and one of the things that I told my fiance was that I wanted to keep my job even after I had the baby. So my best friend started coming over to our place to take care of the baby. My fiance owns his own business so he doesn't have to be there all the time. So he was basically home all the time with my best friend. And no, it never crossed my mind that they would ever do anything behind my back. 3 weeks ago, I started noticing some really weird behavior between them. My best friend had a hickey on her neck and I started asking her who it was from. I just was curious, but my fiance yelled at me and told me to stop asking. Part 2 is up.